That's right, folks. You picked a great night to be with us here on GIN's Thursday Night Turmoil. It's another slobber-knocking, boot-licking, elbow off the top rope kind of night. And we have a busy schedule ahead. So let's get to the action. And without further ado, hear from our Universal Coast to Coast World Heavyweight Champion himself, the Macho Man. We'll be right back with more great wrestling action. Shadows on the wall, yeah. Shadows on the wall, yeah. Go indie now. It's a credo, yeah. It's important to note that as the Macho Man, I have been and done everything you can do. Yeah, everything you can say, yeah. From pillar to port. From pillar to post, yeah. From port to starboard. Yeah, one thing is clear, and it has always been clear. That the Macho Man, yeah, on this Halloween and every Halloween, yeah, have got a message for you. Yeah. And it's always the same. Because the Macho Man and GoIndieNow believe in only one thing. Yeah. Only one thing. And it's time. Yeah. It is time to go indie now. Oh, yeah. Dang it! Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Go Indie Now. We have a great show ahead for you. You know, we're coming up on National Novel Writing Month, or as it's better known as, NaNoWriMo. And we got the opportunity earlier this month to do a special presentation video with official NaNoWriMo YouTuber, booktuber, vlogging sensation, Christy Stratos. Christy was gracious enough to sit down with me, and we went over what motivates someone to do NaNoWriMo. And, you know, if you're a first timer or you're someone who tried it and didn't succeed, you should give it a chance. What are obtainable goals? What are realistic expectations for this event? It's a really cool event, and this was a really great conversation. So definitely go check that out. It's an art form. It's a discipline. I mean, that's what this is really teaching you is the art of being a writer on a daily basis, correct?
That's right. Yeah, it can be so hard to find the time to write every day. And so this is such a good opportunity. And I saw some people at NanoPrep that were saying, you know, this is the only time of year that I write because I can dedicate myself with this community that comes together and supports each other. So that's really great. And for those of us who write all the time, even so, to like buckle down and just say, that's it, I'm writing a novel this month, you know, it's just an exciting time to dedicate that much time. It has taught me so many lessons and about myself and about trying to write every day
to do this as well. Or do you think you need a plan for something like this?
I think it can go either way. I think it's best to go in at least knowing the basic idea you'd like to flesh out. If you really have no clue going in, then I feel like the first day could be really stressful for you. But if you at least have an idea, I'm a pantser. I do not plan. I don't do any outlines at all. So, I'm really taking my life in my hands when I do this.
Are you going until it just comes all out, or how do you approach the essence of what this challenge is?
For me, I do try to cut out time. It's tough. I think most people are either in school or full-time working. And so it is important to sort of carve out that time in your schedule, but it doesn't always work out, and that's okay. You have to sort of accept that before you start, so you're not so disappointed that you have a hard time dealing with it. So I think that's really important. But yeah, I do try to set aside time, especially on weekends. I've heard people say, and I think this is really good, to judge your word count more by the week than by the day, because you can I remember being really disappointed when I first started and saying, oh my gosh, it's the end of week 1 and I've written 1,000 words, But this is the stuff that happens when you've got other big commitments going on. You can't help that. So that's okay. But yeah, exactly. What I definitely do is I write until I'm done. So whether I've reached the word count or not, sometimes that means I'm going to write 500 words. Sometimes that means I'm going to write 2,000. But the good part is you're really getting it all out. And one of the other good things is they have like nano sprints and stuff where you just try to write as much as possible. And I feel like that is extremely helpful because it really pushes you to just write whatever. And the whole idea is don't edit. Don't think too much about it. Just write what's coming out, write what makes sense in the moment, and just get it done. Even if you need to go in a different direction after you write that scene, that's okay. You've gotten it down and you've got some ideas out there. So yeah, for me, I definitely just go until it's all out. Just remembering that there's really no reason to get anxious over it. There's no failure. There's really nothing you can do wrong here. Even writing the novel and saying, I really don't want it to come out this way, and then rewriting it, you accomplish that. It's a huge deal.
Our first guest this episode is musician Eddie Mann. Eddie is someone who's been on quite a life journey with his music and now with photography as well. His ability to express himself and find meaning within what he does has been a huge, huge part of his personal journey.
Wake up early just to find myself late. I'm definitely maybe gonna hurry and wait. Even when the world appears to be on my side, somehow all the honesty will only be denied. I'm feeling a darker shade of blue, but with your help I can see this through and rise up. For today is the day I'll rise up and walk the narrow way. I'll rise up and know what to say. I'll rise up and make a difference.
You mention often in interviews that how you got started was someone handed you a guitar and you just played to an awe of a crowd. But when did you actually begin to craft songs and begin this journey that you are now on as a musician?
Okay. Well, just for clarification, when I first played, I was pretty bad, but it didn't stop me from getting the end result, which was getting a date for Saturday night. But from a musical standpoint, I had to hone my craft a little bit. But I spent the first 4 years or so of being a player was all about the instrument itself, and it took a while for me to get a grasp on the fact that it was the songwriting that really just lit me up. That was really what just, what's what I'm looking for. It got me out of bed in the morning. That was really where the inspiration was. So I kind of had to do a little back step, you know, because I had been studying and getting in the heads of all these early rock guitar players. And so I kind of wanted to change my viewpoint a little bit and try to get in the heads of songwriters and where they were being influenced. And I tend to always want to go first generation. You know, if I can get in the first generation's heads, then I feel like I'm getting a better start in my own craft.
The latest album you developed while you were playing concerts for the previous album, and
Yeah.
you know, almost like writing a sequel or a prequel to a movie. Did the concept come first, or was it one song that got you going and you just kind of cascaded into this concept that you created?
It really wasn't. I write almost every day.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I allow an hour time at least in the early morning for me just to sit down with an instrument and either work on the instrument or allow creativity to come out. Inevitably, it ends up into a writing session most of the time. And I just collect these things. It's kind of like an ongoing diary, I guess. If I laid them all out into a book and read them, it would probably be very much like a diary. But when it comes time to do the next album, I just collect all these songs, and you know, I start picking and choosing, and we'll start recording. And there's usually a theme running through it because these songs more often than not reflect what I'm going through, what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, and that's what happened with Dig Love. I just was really just seeing and hearing so much negative stuff in the world and being disengaged. And I just really wanted to write something that was positive, something that would kind of make people maybe try to have more of a compassionate view about the world again, instead of that, well, you and I don't agree on one thing, so we can't have a dialogue and we can't have a talk and we can't be friends and we can't, you know. And that's what it seems like to me. If I look at the political world, or I look at the world at large, I keep seeing these little stumbling blocks that aren't allowing us to grow. So it was natural, I think. Well, in the past year, while I've been promoting Dig Love a lot, same as before, I've been writing continuously. But I think what happened was I think the songs on The Consequence will be released in November. I think the songs on there are a little bit darker. And I think the tendency was, I may be trying to get people to have a compassionate, loving view of the world, but even when we do that, it still doesn't mean that we're not going to know darkness, and we're not going to know down times, and we're not going to experience death and loss and, you know, those kind of things. So, so some of the songs are a little bit darker, but they still hopefully reveal what the power of love is and how it can lead us and get us out of those times.
You've kept it indie all this time too, which is really fascinating to me.
In the past couple seasons, I'll go back the past 4 or 5, maybe even 10 years, I haven't been indie because I chose it.
Uh-huh.
But see, I was telling somebody yesterday, I'm really outside the box. I'm a musician who's released maybe 9 albums. I have a very nice home, studio, and I'm not in debt. It's like I'm some kind of freak of nature. I don't have to worry about it. And I've got so much freedom now to do the next project or two. You know, each project pays for the next. It's always been the way I've done this. You know, if one project couldn't pay for the next, I don't know whether I'd still be doing it. But for whatever reason, each project has paid for the next, and we've continued to grow. The business has grown, the art has grown, and I've branched out more and more. So I've been very smart, probably business-wise, smarter than some of my friends who got the first check and just spent it all. And, you know, the next week we're just, well, what am I going to do now? So I've always been pretty good at figuring out that, no, I'm going to be a musician. I just decided to try from the get-go to try to just be very realistic about who I was. You know, I can't live like Mick Jagger. I'm not Mick Jagger. You know, I have a lifestyle that's really comfortable, that I love, and it allows me to be really creative.
Tell me though, what the term indie means to you. Does it have a meaning to you, and does it hold a special place in your heart? Because you've basically done it.
I'm releasing the follow-up to Dig Love. I mean, I can do all this because I am independent. You know, and because I keep my costs my costs down. I'm not going to go out and press 100,000 copies of a CD that I'm not going to sell. So it's constantly being aware from a business sense, how's this work? Where's the profit margin to get to the next project? But I'm not actively looking for anything else, if that makes sense. Again, if something came to me now and it was the right thing, I would seriously consider it. But at this point, I've been, all I want to do is continue to reach my niche of people, my audience. I would love to see it grow because everybody does.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be able to reach more people with their artwork. So that's a natural human tendency. But when I was younger, I had 2 opportunities with major labels, and we didn't accept them. If I did, I don't know where, it certainly would have affected me the way I am now. I don't know how the chances of it being successful whenever anybody goes to the major level is very small.
Yeah.
The probability is you're going to come out in debt. You're not going to pay back, but it's a different business today. Nobody's putting up the kind of money they used to when they're signing bands. But I really am so comfortable with the freedom I have. I love being around nature. I'd rather be at the beach than in the woods, a cold mountain. I love warm weather. I love just hanging on the beach and hanging out. And I could sit there and write all day.
It's funny you should mention that because it's very apparent in your photography, and you're a fantastic photographer, by the way. I
appreciate that.
I was blown away by some of these pictures, and it was funny you were talking earlier about how you saw a picture and you looked something up. I did the same thing with yours because I noticed there was a couple herons in your picture, and I was kind of looking at that and going, "There's a symbolic meaning to that." And I knew that the heron has a symbolism to it already, but it had, it got me deeper into it. And
that's great.
I was looking it up and figuring out, wow, and it's impressive what really the heron represents and what ancient cultures really believe about it. So
that's completely what art is about for me. Anybody that feels the need to be creative, we want responses. And sometimes they're negative, and those negative ones can turn into positive things. So I'm always encouraging people, if I write something or do a graphic or something, if you really hate it and it just contact me, tell me what it is. Email me, text me, do something, but let me know. Well, man, what vein did I touch? What nerve did I get? Because that opens up, again, it opens up a dialogue. It opens up a conversation. And, I'm learning stuff all the time. I can't, I do a lot of faith-based albums and things. And I just, I love being challenged by hearing what different people think. I think that's how we grow. I don't want to be, cocooned up in my little shell here. That doesn't do me any good. Doesn't do the world any good. So.
Do you take gigs or look at gigs as opportunities to further your photography as well, or are those just natural things that happen for you?
My wife and I are really kindred spirits, and I took to the photography thing pretty heavy about 5 to 10 years ago, and right on my heels, she did the same thing. So every time I leave the homestead to go out and do an event, to go do a gig, it's an event.
Yeah.
If I need to be there at 6 p.m., I'm going to get there at least at noon or earlier so that we can take camera gear and we can go out and just enjoy this place. Sometimes we've never been there and we just want to scout around, we want to rummage around and just look at the landscape. And other times there are places we've been to and we can't wait to get back to for the same reason, because we just know we're going to be inspired to do things. I'm constantly chasing creativity, or creativity is constantly, pushing me through the day. I guess you could look at it either way.
What's different about photography that you don't get from music, other than the obvious that it's visual and music's audible?
I don't think that it's much easier to get a response musically in a live performance. Photography is kind of like being a studio musician that doesn't travel. You're producing this art, you're sending it out to the world, and you're not really getting that one-on-one type of response or conversation with people. and I don't have the opportunity. Maybe one out of 3, maybe 1 out of 4 venue allows me to actually bring artwork with and make that part of the night's event. But I think that the graphic part of it is, I would love. It's like everything, like grass is greener on the other side thing. I'd love to be a painter. I'd love to be able to paint. But I'd really have to study it and take lessons. And if I did it, it would be mechanical, because there's nothing natural about painting for me.
Yeah.
Graphic arts, it comes really natural. Photography, I love, I take the shot that doesn't turn out at all, the one that somebody else will toss away, is the one that I'm going to work on, and I'm going to get something out of it. I'm going to get into Photoshop, and I'm going to start being creative. And so it's a great balance for me. It gets me out of the music world a little bit. It lets me clear my mind a little bit, because usually when I'm either working on the photography, in or out, I'm not listening to music. I'm trying to not escape it, but that's really what I'm doing. I'm getting myself into a different kind of world. Although inevitably what happens is I'll take a shot of something and I'll go, man, there's a song in there somewhere. it is all tied together. But it really, I think I've just grown to live in a place where I'm really open to inspiration. I just want to try to get people working together again, because I don't think we'll ever be able to move forward into a better, more warming kind of natured society unless we do that.
Ooh, yeah. That was a good interview. That Eddie Man, he's something else. I enjoy his music. Yeah. I will especially like the title of one of his albums. It's called Dig Love. Yes, Eddie, I can dig it. Oh, yeah. I want to thank Joe Compton and GoIndieNow for having me here this episode. This is the Macho Man, and I'm here to tell you, that this show will be right back.
Hi, Jason Greensides here, reviewing indie films for GoIndieNow. This month I want to talk about Embrace of the Serpent by Ciro Guerra. It's a Colombian film that came out last year and was nominated for Best Foreign Film, and I went to see it in the cinema, and that was one of the best decisions I've made this year, going to see that film at the cinema, especially because I hardly ever go anymore, because it's just such a gamble these days. But this one, it was the absolute right choice to see this film, because it is superb and I highly recommend it. The film follows two different timelines, one in 1909 as a German called Theodor Koch Grunberg, and then in 1940 following an American called Richard Evans Schultz, who is actually trying to follow where the German went in 1909. Both of them are just looking for a rare plant that has medicinal and magical properties, called the Yacruna plant, and they are both aided by the main character of the film, Karamakati, who's an Amazonian shaman, and both the two Westerners engage him to try and find this plum. So that's the main plot of the film, and it goes back and forth between those timelines. They kind of weave through each other. And so, you know, the editing of the film from that point of view is already superb. So, as I say, the main character of the film is actually the Amazonian shaman. And he's played by two different people because of the two different timelines. But both performances are absolutely fantastic. He is an amazing character. You totally empathise with him. Quite often with these films, I can't relate to the character. They're always these mystical kind of, you know, they're just on some other level. They're mystical, but you never really relate to them at a gut level. But this guy, I did. He is absolutely superb, and there were bits where I really did feel for him. So that is the thing with this film. It is kind of in the tradition of the white man going down the river, or, you know, experiencing an alien culture. It's in the tradition of Conrad's Heart of Darkness, Apocalypse Now, and also Werner Herzog's Aguirre Wrath of God, and Fitzcarraldo. And so, but it actually switches it. It is a blend of Western narrative and Amazonian myth, but it does switch it and take it all from the Amazonians' point of view, the natives' point of view. And from that point of view, it's already putting it on from a Westerner's point of view. It's already sort of making it quite original in that way, because that's something we don't often see. And here it really, really does work. So, you know, I highly recommend this film. The black and white photography is shot on 35mm, is absolutely superb. It's beautiful, wonderfully shot, but doesn't take it too far. It's not like mesmerizingly, completely dazzlingly beautiful to the point where it takes you out of the story, because, you know, there are films that do that, you know, like Terrence Malick recently. There's, you know, there's nothing beneath that, or not a lot going on beneath that surface. But this is just like, you know, the characters and their journey is the main thing, and the photography and the editing, and the music is superb as well. It all just supports the story. The main theme that the film deals with is memory, the fragmentation and disintegration of memory, which is an excellent theme because we can see conflict between the older self and the younger self of the Karamakati guy. And his older self has lost all hope. He's distanced himself from his culture and the past, and is reluctant to take both of them down the river for the Yakruna plant. And it's also to do with man against man, and, you know, man's conflict with his environment. So they're all, you know, weighty themes that we're all familiar with, but the film executes them in an excellent way. End is superb. I could easily give you a film to compare it to, and you'll know straight away what the kind of ending it is, but I won't do that because it will spoil it. But yeah, I thought the whole film was superb. I give it 5 stars. The ending just made it for me. It was just pure quality ending. Rotten Tomatoes is at 98%. IMDb 8 out of 10. That's all good enough for me. So yeah, if you get the chance, go see it, DVD, stream it, whatever you need to do. But if you're interested in something that's just not your average Hollywood big blockbuster comic book, whatever, blah blah blah, you're actually interested in cinema and proper filmmaking, then go and see it, because it is an excellent film. Thanks for listening.
Up next is the host of a personal favorite podcast of mine called Lady Audio. That's available on iTunes, on YouTube, and also on Podbean, where GoIndieNow is, incidentally. And this interview is with Lady Audio herself, Miss Clara Afrana. And Clara is, along with a host of her own show, is a lover of all things audio, hence Lady Audio. But beyond that, she has done a lot in the entertainment industry to help other filmmakers, and she has her own band and has helped other musicians with the audio, which is one of the most technical and hardest things to learn for most visual artists, and it's one of the most important. And we talk a lot about what you need as a filmmaker, as a musician, to help you with audio. Your love of sound, where did that come from?
I think it started when I heard Tina Turner singing "What's Love Got to Do with It?" And I had a tape, cassette tape, and my Walkman, and I would just put on my little headphones and just trip out on her voice and all of the instruments that were going on. And I think that kind of started it. And then when I was a little bit older, I started getting into goth rock and the bands like The Cure and U2 and XTC. And I would just sit there with my headphones on and just trip out on the music and how they were able to capture all of those sounds. And I was inspired to play music after that. But it wasn't until probably about 5 years ago now that I really started wanting to learn how recording worked. And I really started diving into trying to record. And before that, you know, the albums that I had were all recorded by my husband. And then when I started getting into it, I found out I had a pretty good knack for the editing aspect of it. So being able to take a section from here and put it over there, and then being able to do natural fades and all that kind of thing, and you know, learning all the different plugins and everything. So but it started a long time ago.
When you watch movies and stuff like that, do you notice, is sound quality one of the first things you notice about watching a movie or seeing a video or anything like that?
It is one of the very first things that I notice. I think that now, especially rewatching a lot of these older movies, listening to the sounds and the footsteps of the stormtroopers. Everyone knows that sound. It's like an iconic sound, and yet it's just the footsteps of the certain characters.
What do you think is the biggest mistake indie filmmakers make when it comes to sound recording?
I think they tend to skimp out a little bit when it comes to the audio.
Mm-hmm.
When you're making a film and then you have a certain I would say level on one scene, and then the level changes on another scene, that is really distracting. And I think if they pay a little more attention to the audio, it could really separate their film from the rest, because people are going to be paying attention. They'll be able to pay attention because they can hear what people are saying, and they can hear it clearly without a bunch of noise from the reverberation from the room, or background noise, and those kinds of things. If you do an A/B test with the exact same scene with a good microphone and the exact same scene with just an internal microphone, the one with the good microphone is going to have a lot more impact.
Can you, by just ear, tell whether a filmmaker's done an in-camera mic or used an external source to record the audio?
Yeah, it's pretty evident, I think. Yeah. The only thing that would make it difficult to tell is if they had the microphone in a room that was really reverberant.
Mm-hmm.
Because a room can make such a big difference. If you're in a nice living room with a lot of paintings and blankets and couches everywhere, you're going to get a pretty good sound because there are things for it to bounce off of. If you're in an empty room, kind of like where I am now, the walls are really reverberant, and whether I'm using my internal mic or my external mic, you're going to pick up all of those little extra noises, and it isn't going to sound as good as if you were in like a sound booth or you had that nice bigger room.
What do you look for when you're getting projects? What kind of projects excite you?
For creativity. Of course, like my favorite genres would be sci-fi and horror, but if the project is a creative piece and it isn't just following the same old template that everyone else uses, teenagers get in a car, they go to a campground, they are murdered. It's like it's like and then the storyline isn't so great either. But if you have a little bit of a storyline and you have that creativity behind it, like maybe it is the same story, but your angles are really different, your lighting is really different. The choice of edits that you use is a little bit different. The way you fade in and out between scenes, those types of things are what I really enjoy.
Let's talk about your band. I mean, you have a band, and you guys have been doing it for a long time now.
Yeah.
You have an interesting way of describing your sound. You call it haunting dream rock. Elaborate on that. What does that mean?
Well, what we did was we were listening to one of those, how to get your music out there, whatever it is, kind of little thing. I can't remember if it was tapes or YouTube or whatever now, but one of the things was to ask your audience what comes to mind when they listen to your music. And so it wasn't exactly like that, but what we did was we kind of took a spin off of what we learned from that, and we asked our fans, what are the first 3 things that come to your mind when you listen to our music? And the three things that came to mind more frequently, because we asked like a bunch of people, so we kept getting the same words over and over again, and so we just connected the dots and we put those out, and they were haunting, edgy, and dreamy. And so we took that and we're like, well, okay, so we're not technically dream pop and we're not really shoegaze, because no one has said shoegaze, but they have said the first three things that come to my mind are, the haunting vocals, and then there's this edgy guitar and bass and drum sound, and there's this element of dreamy with the keyboards and effects that I like to use on the vocals and stuff, because I like delay. So I use a lot of delay, and it's that kind of psychedelic, dreamy kind of a vibe.
Your songwriting process like? Do you guys, is it mixed? Or is it lyrical based first or musical based first? What is your process like?
Usually we start out with the music first, because we'll just be playing or we'll hear something in a dream or whatever, and we'll record little sections, and we use, now that we have one, we use a Zoom H4n, and we it's really quick. You just pick it up and you press record, and you get a nice little stereo sound for your idea. And we have like tons and tons of ideas, just little song sections. And so like when we go to write, whatever we're inspired to write, we'll choose, that beginning little section that we want to develop. And then from there, we may add lyrics right away to that particular section, or we might just kind of create the entire song first and just mix and match the music first. Just recently, I've been writing almost every single day, but a lot of times I'll just wake up in the middle of the night, or I'll wake up really early in the morning or something like that with something going through my head, and I'll just start writing, and it like a flow will come, and I'll just write out a bunch of lyrics. So we have like books and books of my journals of like dreams that I've had and stuff like that. So those are kind of like our lyrical content. Get so immersed in it that it doesn't seem like it takes that long, but actually one song can take a couple of months just to write. And other songs can come out, a lot more quickly than that.
So what does the term indie mean to you?
Indie to me means someone who is willing to do the work. They're willing to put in the work to get their art out there, to get their art complete, even if they don't have the funding to go behind it, even if they have kids screaming in the background, even if they have a full-time job, even if blah, 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 and all those different things that can get in the way. they'll do it anyway. And that's what indie means to me. It means people that are really dedicated to not just being on this earth, but being a part of it. Like, I don't mean to get all deep or anything, but that's what it means to me. It just means like, I am here and I have a message, and I am going to get this message out there no matter what it takes.
Nice.
So
I am indie, hear me roar, right?
yeah, that's right. For an artist that is writing, recording, mixing, and mastering the entire project, it can get mushy. Your thought processes and the way you are hearing the song and everything can get really weird if you actually get into the mastering process. So one thing that I've learned is that go ahead, do your writing, your recording, and your mixing. You can do all that, and then let it sit. And don't just let it sit for a couple of hours. Don't just let it sit for one day. Let it sit for a good few days to a week. Let your mix rest. Let your ears rest from the song. Play a bunch of your other songs and your other mixes. Rehearse, practice, do all of those other types of things. And then come back to your mix and see if it needs any adjustments then, and then go to the mastering stage. Because most artists do not master their own music. And there's a reason for that. There are many reasons for that. But if you do have to do it yourself, then I would say, one of the things that I learned is that you need to let it rest. Let that mix rest, and then come back to it to do the final mixing and mastering.
Lady audio. Psychedelic rock and roll. I can dig it. Yeah, that was a great interview. Oh, yeah. You know, it's not always about what you see, but what you hear. What? I hear something. The Macho Man hears a lot, and he sees a lot. And this is a great show, and it's only going to get better. So stick around. We'll be right back. Dig it!
Tonight, the city is under attack by what police are calling the Haystack Killer. The serial murderer claims his victims by using a hay hook. The Haystack Killer has claimed 10 lives so far, including a family of 4. As the manhunt continues, the chief of police had these words.
I'm different, and I know it. I'm different, and I'm not afraid to show it. I'm different, and you might as well just go with it. But if you look deep down inside, you're gonna see there's a lot of you in me. There's a lot of you in me. We're too much alike to be the same. We're so insecure we need to blame. We're lost in ourselves and all our pain. And you'd think by now we'd grown enough to see there's a lot of you in me. There's a lot of you in me. There's a light that shines in all of us. There's a lot of you in me.
Welcome to GoIndieNow, book review with me, your host, Jin Okubo. I'm the author of Love. I'm the author of Kaoru and Love's Shadow, both romances. I'm also the author of Memories, and I'm also the author of Brotherhood, which is 2 books of a trilogy fantasy series that I'm writing. The third in the series will come out next year. And I would also like to introduce my new service that I'm providing for people at my website, which is editing. So please go ahead and jump on over to jinokubo.com and go to the editing services and meet your editing needs. Today's review is a Halloween one. 13 stories, 13 tales to give you your night terrors. I haven't heard night terrors in a long time, and the word night terrors. But this story, this book, these 13 stories are very light horror, almost campy to a point. So if you want to feel something a little bit campy, that kind of horror, fun, playful, not too scary, yeah, I recommend this book. It's great as an intro for people who don't really read horror, but they want to try reading a little bit of it. It's great. There are editing issues in the book, and though there is harsh language, it is not what teenagers haven't heard yet. If they've watched any rated R movie, they've heard this movie. If they've watched any action movie, they've heard these words. But I don't recommend it for anyone younger than 13. And it's a very nice story to get yourself into that horror point. And again, this is Jin Okubo from GoIndieNow. You guys have a good one.
Our next interview is Amanda Campbell and Susan Ferrari of The Strands. Now, if you haven't heard of The Strands, they're an LA-based band that kind of mixes and matches a little bit of genre. They have some jazz, they have some big band, they have a little bit of classic rock, they have some funk. They do some really cool, musical arrangements, and they are very talented musicians who come together. Just to get a chance, go to their YouTube channel and check out their videos, because their videos are really neat. They usually are just filmed in their rehearsal space, and it just is this cool vibe. It's
'cause it's rough out there. Yeah, it's rough out there. You gotta be tough out
formed in 2011, but how did you actually find one another?
Well, I was in a band and we had a keyboard player and they were never making it to rehearsals, and we were like, we need a new keyboard player. So we put an ad on Craigslist and we met Susie.
I had just moved here from Massachusetts, and I wanted to join a band. So I just came here and auditioned, and that was a different band. Now the Strands is the band that we formed after that.
Yeah, that band broke up into like 3 pieces.
It was like a big egg, and it just dropped, and the strands came out.
So it was a happy accident then?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there were some accident parts of it too.
Had to pick out some of the shells that the egg broke into, right?
Yeah.
Live gigs has become your forte. I mean, you guys self-describe yourselves as a live band. So beyond developing a set list, do you guys have room that you tailor for improv in any way? Do you have like a plan B or plan C, or do you stick to whatever you design as a set list despite the audience?
Well, we do call it the not so set list, and we do change it up a little bit, but it's never completely off the list. We do pretty much stick to it.
I would like to improvise more.
Yeah,
I would like to do that more. I think that is a good suggestion, and probably a direction that we would like to go in live, because that's the point of live.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that your audiences are different from venue to venue?
Yeah. I think, there's different rooms you play. Some are really listening rooms, and some are more clubby, and the songs get played differently. I think you get more pumped up when it's more clubby, and it's more pared down when it's the listening room.
Well, and our history in LA is that we tend to play clubs right before they close.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's a good thing, but
yeah, we're experts.
Yeah, so the
at that.
venue, the audience does change. But yeah, there were some good ones on Lincoln in LA that we played, but they're not there anymore. It's hard to keep a club going that's devoted to listening to music, really.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, what's one thing that you would like to see venues or possibly future venues do to make it easier for bands that play there?
Stay open.
Yeah, that would help.
Money. I don't know.
I think they could do a lot more with the marketing of the gigs. I mean, they really pretty much leave that up to the band.
Yeah.
There's only a few that send out anything on Facebook, and they don't really promote it. They leave that to the band. And I think if they promoted it more and were more an active partner with you on social media, that they would get more people into their clubs.
You guys do recording. Do you guys layer it, or are you guys doing it separately by instrument, or do you guys do it as I've seen it on YouTube, where you play in one room?
Yeah, we play
in one room, but then we also overdub, obviously. But the first pass is us live in a room.
How much do you guys rehearse?
Susan got here from the East Coast yesterday at 2, and by 2:45 we were rehearsing.
Yes.
If we're in a room together, it usually means we're going to play.
Yeah.
How would you rate the quality as far as the music business is concerned? Has it gotten better? Is there something that's you'd like to see improved as far as how women are perceived in music?
I guess we're moving in the right direction, but slow. I'd like to see not so much attention paid to the appearance of women, and more focus on the voice and the sound that's happening.
There does seem to be a double standard as far as a woman has to have a certain kind of voice, maybe, but a man can have a lot of different. Men can have a lot of different. Bob Dylan can sing his songs, but I don't know. I just think that there's a double standard, but maybe that's changing. I don't know. I don't know if it is. We don't really think about it that much.
No, I don't think about it that much.
Is there one thing you think that can be done that would turn it around pretty quickly?
Yeah, probably have some great artist come out and just turn it around, really.
Yeah.
You know, and like, I mean, don't you think that the music industry is ripe for a big change right now? So I just think that whatever's coming is going to be a big sea change, and maybe you know, people's expectations will change or something.
Yeah, I mean, I've been hashtagging older is the new younger.
Nice.
I mean, I really like to see people appreciate that people of all ages can make great music and not see this focus on youth all the time, because especially lyrically, I mean, we have a wealth of experience that is evident in our lyrics.
Why are you looking down with your head in your hands and your feet stuck on the ground? It's not over, there's still time, I think, to see what comes around.
What does the term indie mean to you?
Do it yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. In every aspect.
Everything.
I mean, that's what's happened with the music business, and anything that you read will say, you know, used to be there was some sort of a record label that would be supporting you, and now it's like, you're on your own, baby.
Yeah, you know, everything from, you know, writing.
That's why she does the marketing,
Yeah.
you know?
Booking, you know, everything. Yeah, it's do it yourself.
Yeah.
Do you like that, or do you hope that someday somebody will take that over from you?
Oh, I hope someone will take that over, very much so.
We definitely want the support.
Yeah, I want to be, you know, a diva.
But we do, on the other hand, we love freedom.
Yeah.
I mean, I love freedom.
Yeah,
and you
no,
love freedom. So, I mean, it's nice to feel free to do it.
Yeah, I would like to not have the responsibility of, or feeling responsible for getting people to gigs. I'd like that to be an automatic thing, you know, where you know, we just show up there. And it's, you know, I really appreciate when anybody shows up, because I never leave the house unless I've got a gig. So I always appreciate it.
Good thing you have kids.
Yeah.
I was going to start this interview by mentioning this. I got the coolest email I've ever gotten from a band from you guys, and I know it was automated from your Reverb Nation service, but I was so floored by what you said, and I'm going to steal it. I'm just telling you that now. And that we hope it's okay that we added you to our mailing list, and that we really appreciate you being a part of it. I've never had anybody actually say, you know, we're sorry that we have to do this, but we want to really do this.
That's Amanda. She's a very polite British person.
No, it's so funny because I type that every time. Thank you so much for becoming a fan, blah, blah. And then I copy it, and if there's 2 fans that day, I can paste it, but the next day, I have to do it again. Thank you so much. I think that's really important.
Why don't you just save that?
Well, because I haven't figured out how to do that.
But yeah, it's so clever. You know, it's that subtle touch that really endears you to your audience. I mean, a lot of people, I mean, there's so many complaints about social media overloading people, and, you know, hey, look, I get this automated message from you, or this automatic, you know, hey, thanks for subscribing, now go check out my Facebook page message, and people get overloaded with spam, but that little personal touch I thought was brilliant. I never even thought of doing something like that. So that was.
Well, thank you. I'll give myself a pat on the back.
But I mean, it kind of goes with our whole thing of, like, you know, sort of just that intimate kind of, you know, like the music's sort of intimate, and you know, we want to have a party with you.
Yeah.
That's how we started, really. We would do gigs and have parties.
You know, and I really do sincerely appreciate it when someone joins our mailing list. You know, I mean, to me, it's just like, it's another step towards the dream. You know, it's
You know, I know a lot of people love Halloween. I'm particularly not one of them. You know, I just didn't think much of it. But I have to tell you, dressing up for this episode of my show and being the macho, being a macho man, oh yeah, was, you know, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. And the Macho Man always made it fun for me as a kid. And he was a real big indie influence on me, believe it or not. I mean, I knew of the Macho Man before he was Hall of Fame WWF superstar and WCW world champion, multi-time world champion, I think two-time WWF champion, and numerous intercontinental titles and tag team titles along the way. But titles never define the wrestler. That's one of the cool things about wrestling. But Macho Man was just that indie spirit. He came from a world that not all the prototypical at the time WWF superstars came from. There was no grooming independence into the fold for Vince McMahon. He liked a certain kind of guy. And the Macho Man changed his mind. And that's the cool thing about it. As indies, we can do that. We have influence. We have power, and I think it's collective power. And I think together we can only get stronger and grow stronger. That's why I like to do this show and introduce you to all kinds of indies, not just authors and filmmakers and, musicians. We got some painters and, even maybe some wrestlers out there. I don't know. But anybody who wants to be on my show that considers themselves an indie, I would definitely welcome the opportunity. I love artists, and I love talking to artists, and I love bringing them together, and it's really cool when that happens. So I'm really thankful for you all to watch this show, and I'm really thankful to the Strands, Amanda and Susan, and Lady Audio, Clara, and Eddie Mann for being a part of the show for this episode. And I thank you for watching. So, I'll do it one more time for you. Here, I'll even do this. And it's time. It's always time to go indie now. Oh, yeah. Take it.